So we just watched the newest movie on Netflix, and it is called Society of the Snow. And man, this movie makes you feel really cold. Anyway, we'll give you our full thoughts in just a second.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
I'm a OG boy. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to another Odd Popcorn for that review. I'm Chris.
I'm Nick.
And we are talking about Society of the Snow. So this just dropped on Netflix. It was actually a 2023 release in the world, but in the US, we didn't get to see it until it dropped on Netflix on January 4th. This is directed by J.A. Bayona, who also did like one of the Jurassic World movies, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, and a movie called The Impossible, The Orphanage, A Monster Calls. I don't think I've seen any of those movies.
I don't.
This seems like a pretty different movie based on what I know about those movies. But this is based on a true story about a Uruguayan rugby team getting stranded in an airplane crash in the Andes Mountains?
Yeah, on the way to
the
Chile.
Andes Mountains, on the way to Chile. It's a harrowing story, and it's a true story, so we're not going to dance around spoilers too much, but you just watched a American rendition of this movie that came out a few years ago. I don't know.
It wasn't a few years ago. It came out 30 years ago. So the true story happened in like 1972, so 50 years ago. And then I believe the movie, which is called Alive, came out in 1993 or 94. So it's about 30 years old, and starring Ethan Hawke. And mostly, I mean, some of the actors seem like they could have been South American or something, but it seemed like a lot of white guys portraying that. But I mean, it's, you know.
Right. So, how was that movie?
Yeah, I think that was a good movie. I think this is a good movie. They have differences, but being that it is based off of a true story, there are a lot of similarities. One big difference is that, like, kind of the main character you follow in Society of the Snow, Numa, he's not even in Alive. He's not a character in Alive, but he was a real person, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Alive, it seems you follow Roberto is kind of like the main character, and Marcelo, who is like the team captain. They're kind of the two main characters until Nando wakes up from his injury, which, you know, we'll talk about. But yeah, there are differences, but it's hard to differentiate like that much from the true story without making it that much, you know, different than the two movies.
So, I mean, this movie worked for me on a lot of levels. It certainly conveys that feeling of being isolated and being hopeless and being trapped and being, like I said, cold. And just the suffering of these people is on full display here. And it is almost, I mean, it can be a little bit of a hard watch. I don't see myself rewatching this very often, as good as it is, because you really are like suffering along with these people. And it's not a short movie. And it feels its length, I think, because you're not having a good time most of the movie. So as good and well executed as this is, they're not shying away from the brutality of this and all the deaths and all, you know, which are just marked by the person's name and their age when they died appearing on the screen. And the thing a lot of people are going to talk about with this movie is that there's aspects of like cannibalism in this out of sheer necessity, obviously. But I don't think they did it in a gratuitous way at all. You know what I mean? Like, they're not trying to get any... It's no shock value out of this, really.
Yeah, I mean, it was the same way in Alive. Like, they kind of just show a little bit of cutting. They don't show much other than that besides them actually eating, you know?
But even without showing you anything like that, I think it's very effective at making you really feel the full impact of, like, how it would be in this situation to be faced with, like, either die of starvation or live by, like, gnawing on a part of your friend.
Yeah, and they kind of show, like, you know, one of the people picks the bodies, and these two cousins kind of butcher the body, but they do that off to the side, so you don't know who it is, so you don't have to think about it while you're doing it. While these people actually have to suffer through knowing who it is and everything.
Right. And I'll mention too, like, there's some special effects. I don't know. I guess to some level, CGI. You know, to whatever degree it's CGI and practical, I don't know. but there's some special effects moments that were really effective here, and I think the plane crash is handled so well I had to watch it twice.
Yeah,
like really I just thought the plane crash is really well done, and all the seats crunching together when they come to that screeching halt, that was brutal. And there's like an avalanche scene at one point much later in the movie that I thought was just, it just feels like a case of like, man, these guys cannot win for losing. Like everything is just piling onto these guys, literally and figuratively, and and it just feels like, man, how can you ever get out of this situation? And they were there for so long. Like in real life, I mean, these people were just there for so long. It's really amazing that as many people survived as did.
71 days. I think it was 45 people total, because it was like 40 people and 5 crew, and only 16 people survived.
It's unbelievable, because that scene is really hard to watch, where they're realizing that they're like hearing on the radio that the search is ended.
Mm-hmm.
We're calling off the search. And then it even says in there like no crash in the Andes has ever had any survivors. So
it probably wouldn't have, if not for a couple of those guys who just kept hoping, like, we're getting out of these mountains, and ended up trekking out to like find
and
help.
They don't skimp on like character development either, even with characters that are ultimately not going to make it. If there's such a thing as a spoiler with this is a little bit of one, but the person narrating this doesn't make it even. Mm-hmm. So there is a point where you realize like, oh, we've been hearing the voice of someone who doesn't end up making it either. I think they do a good job too, where like, thankfully this isn't 100% nothing but cold, dark, lonely story. Like there are some moments even after they're trapped where we see some moments of like levity and joking around and playfulness with them. And I also thought it added something nice where the guy is going around taking pictures of them, and they're showing us the pictures and interspersing them with like the first picture of them all happy getting on the plane for the first time. Because this is a lot of people's first time ever leaving the country, or practically ever leaving home. These are young guys. It's just interesting to see that first picture of them all happy-go-lucky about to get on the plane versus them now in this plane fuselage that's just skidded across the snow, and they're just surviving.
I thought
a lot of cool things with this.
I thought a cool detail at the kind of towards the beginning of the movie, they're building up to the people going on the trip, which isn't a part in Alive. I think they start and they're kind of basically already going. But there's a scene where they're in church, and one of the guys is trying to get another guy to come on the trip, just like as a friend to come, because he's like, it's the last time we're gonna hang out and everything. But in church, like in the background, the priest is speaking, and it's like when Jesus says, "Man can't live on bread alone. Take this and eat of my flesh," or whatever. And it's like, oh, that's gonna happen.
Yeah, and it does come back. Yeah, it's super, especially for a lot of guys that I found out are a lot of these guys are newcomers to acting. Period.
Yeah, they're great.
And they used all people from Uruguay and Argentina, so that adds authenticity to it. But everybody here does a great job, and they're really asked to do a lot, man. There were some things that I don't know how they shot these things. They're really asking these guys to, I guess, put their lives on the line, unless there's, I don't know. It's just some brutal stuff that these guys have to do. Yeah, everybody handled it super well, and there was some really cool stuff with the camera as well, like some cool handheld close-up shots and things like that are interspersed in there that added a lot to it. Made you feel like you're trapped in there with them. The original score is great. I thought it's an original score, and I think it punctuated the parts of the movie that it needed to punctuate really well. So I thought the score was really good. The only thing that like detracts me and is going to make it where I have a little bit less of a lower score as far as my enjoyment of it is just, like I said, it does feel like just a one-time watch, and it's a struggle to be out there suffering in the snow with these guys for over 2 hours. It's like what, almost 2.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and if you don't know the story, you don't know if they're gonna make it out or not. Like, I have a couple interesting facts. Okay. A couple of the guys that were actually on the plane were in the movie. Like, apparently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Nando, who is one of the people who actually trekked out of the Andes and like found people to help his friends. He was in the movie in the airport scene. He's like one of the family members.
Okay.
Carlito, the person who plays Carlito's dad, who I believe is on the phone one time, like saying the name of survivors. He's like, "Carlito, my son." Like, that is actually Carlito.
Oh.
And there's
that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and there's like, so during these movies, they're like smoking cigarettes the entire time they're there. They're there for like 70 days. And the reason they had so many cigarettes is there's a guy on the plane. He's one of the older guys. His wife was there who ended up dying. His like Methal or something is his last name. But apparently his family was like tobacco farmers and salesmen and stuff. So they just had like thousands of cigarettes. That's why they had so many, yeah. And also another little fun fact, like, so apparently the end of the movie is kind of like Roberto, who's like the second team captain, maybe not, but Nando, they hike out, they find, somebody, they get taken to the Uruguayan Air Force, Chilean Air Force, and they go rescue their friends, and they arrive in helicopters, but apparently, it shows them all getting picked up at the same time, but apparently some of the guys still had to stay like one extra night, because they didn't have enough room for everybody, so like some of the crew got off and stayed with them in the fuselage, and like one of the guys refused to stay in there because it was like so filthy and stuff, and like set up a tent outside, and they had to come back the next day and get the rest of the guys, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Well, I was kind of thinking watching this, like, how do you fit all those guys on one helicopter? Right. And it seems like and isn't there a moment where like they're like, you can't take the briefcase, and the guy, because that one guy's like stuffed. Because there's one character who's been like saving little keepsakes from everyone that dies. He's got all these necklaces he wears around his neck, but he's got like patches and buttons and all these little trinkets from all these people. Like, and he puts it all in a suitcase. And he like refuses to not take that briefcase with him because they're telling him, we're kind of at maximum weight here.
Yeah, and he's like, I'll just stay here then.
Yeah, and it really showed a lot of how people can form these like unbreakable bonds in these like moments of turmoil in their lives, and people can come together and make something happen, even if a lot of people didn't make it. It's like, well, the people that did make it still kept not giving up. So because it took them having to go miles and miles and miles on foot, and
it took them
brutal nights,
10 days to I think it was like 10 or 12 days to hike out and finally find like lower ground of a valley that had actual grass and like find somebody.
I thought that was a cool shot too, where he's like, look, and it's like a lizard on a rock, and they're like, oh, we got food tonight, and then the other guy's like, look, and it's a person on a horse, and it's like, forget that lizard. We got a human being. Yeah, really good movie. As far as like this genre of movie goes, you really can't do a whole lot better. I mean, they really nailed it on a lot of angles. So, what would you rate it?
I'd give it like a 7. I think like it was a really good movie. It's a tough watch. I think for first time actors, a lot of these guys did a very good job. I think
I'd give it like a 7.5 or an 8. Like I said, it's just, I think it would be a higher score if I could see myself rewatching it. I hate to take anything off of it because of not wanting to rewatch it, but that does impact my scores of these things. Like, can I see myself checking this out again? And yeah, it'd be hard to check this out again. So it's definitely a movie I recommend that you don't want to miss. We appreciate you guys watching. Hit like below if you like this kind of thing. Share it with your friends. Hit subscribe. Help us get to 500 subs. We look forward to talking to you guys in the next one. Oh, and let us know below if you have seen this movie and what you thought about it. We'll talk to you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.
We'll see ya.